All right, coming up on today's edition of the Art Marketing Podcast, we are back with continuing in the artist interview series. And I have my new friend who I've just met. We were furiously bonding over a shared love of Mexico, which he and I are super passionate about. But I've got photographer, podcaster, naturalist, conservationalist. I mean, you're like the Swiss Army knife of backgrounds in Court Whelan. So welcome to the show. Fired up to have you. I usually love starting off with give us a little bit of the origin story. Everybody does it, but it's a nice way to kick things off.
Yeah, sure thing, Patrick. And thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here. And yeah, I mean, your mention of the Swiss Army knife is appropriate because that's truly what I try to do. And I think because one of my big passions, my big why is showcasing the beauty of the world for all to enjoy. From a conservation standpoint, you got to be, you got to do a lot of different things if we want to change culture, change conservation culture, get people to pay attention to some of these things, and ultimately work to promote the beauty and save it, et cetera, et cetera. So that is that's my why, and that really came about. Gosh, now it's almost 25 years ago. Hard to believe.
Crazy.
But, kind of having this pivotal internship experience going in guiding, not having any idea what I was doing, but joining a group that was guiding a group of high school kids in Belize. And it just changed my mind. Like, I want to be out in nature. I want to teach people about nature. And so that was like the big aha moment. I think a lot of people have those singular moments that then cascade.
Were you in college or was it post-college?
Yeah, I was in college. Yeah, I was like right in the middle of undergrad, and but it did totally change my trajectory. And so I went back after that trip and basically retooled my major to have an ecotourism emphasis, something we're now kind of like also calling conservation travel. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's this idea of responsible travel to natural areas that conserves the environment and also promotes the welfare of local people. And so then, the fast forward from there is ended up studying hard and getting a master's and a PhD in it, and basically using my love of travel and biology to launch travel programs that essentially get, quote unquote, the average person out in these far flung places to, take photographs of lemurs in Madagascar, snowshoe in Antarctica, go on safaris in Kenya and Tanzania and Botswana and all these great places. And throughout this whole time, as a conservation biologist, my love of photography was just really organic and really natural. Mm-hmm. Very much self-taught, but
occupational hazard at a point, right?
Yeah, I know exactly. So just kept on, cranking away at it. And then, now again, 25 years later, have fortunately built this great career, this great photo portfolio. And I would say my love of photography and showcasing the beauty through my eyes is no less than my passion for conserving these places. So they're really, really in tandem. And yeah, I love what I'm able to do.
So, wow. I mean, we have a customer, by the way, named Tim Lehman that I got to put you on. Do you know him?
Yeah, well, I know of him. Yeah, I mean, he's the bird of paradise guy. Like, I was guiding in Papua New Guinea back in the day, and have his book, and
you two got to know each other, because it's like I was just hearing all that, and it's like this. You are the second one where it's like PhD coming with all of that animal knowledge, all of that natural environment knowledge, and then also bringing in the photography knowledge, and it makes for a really cool, like, blended overall picture. And it's it's funny because I was like listening to your line about how your passion for the environment and saving and sustainability and getting these people to realize the gift that is ecotourism and stop destroying the environment. I was like, that is such a buzz line for everyone else. But I've been looking at his entire footprint for the last 30 minutes. It's not a buzz line for Court. This is life. I mean, this is exactly how you're living it. So when you started, it was, you were guiding and you were doing tours, you were doing research, and then the photography, obviously occupationally, just started ratcheting up, or how did that work?
Yeah, totally. I mean, very, very organic. When I did that first trip to Belize, I took the plunge and took a little student loan out to buy my first camera, this state-of-the-art 2-megapixel Canon.
Wow.
And it was a little point and shoot, but it made it easy. It made it accessible. I got to be totally honest. I don't know if I would have gotten into photography to the degree that I did without the digital age being before me, because I could see my photos instantly. I didn't need to carry a whole suitcase of film. And so, it really started with the digital age, and then that little point and shoot turned into a better point and shoot, turned into a used basic DSLR, then full frame, and then, you know, just fully committed. And now, you know, talking about gear, I'm a bit of a gear nerd. I mean, I think that the equipment is such a big part of what I do, giving me the access, the possibilities of capturing things, frankly, in pretty difficult environments. You know, like we're going to photograph monarch butterflies, and people think, oh, it's going to be super easy to photograph butterflies all around me. Well, yeah, it's super easy to take the photo and get something that's pretty good. But, you know, having the gear, having the knowledge, having the expertise, that's what I do as a photo guide. Because how do you take a single subject, whether it's monarchs in Mexico, whether it's orangutans in Borneo, and photograph them 45 different ways, you know, and get that full album, from everything from, you know, the classic portraiture shot to the environmental landscape shot with the critter in it, all the way down to photographing, you know, what do the eyes look like, what, you know, zooming in on the face, the fingernails, or like this kaleidoscope of butterflies. So yeah, you know, getting back to what you said before, I feel very fortunate to have that biology background, because I think it gives me a leg up to understand the behavior, understand the uniqueness of what I'm seeing, but then also to anticipate the photography, you know, to anticipate that scene that when I see an orangutan building a nest, you know, I now know, like, okay, there's gonna be a great photo op in about 10 minutes when this thing settles down and cuddles up in its nest at night. And then that gives me the ability to get some of these really unique shots that are out there.
It's such a leg up. And, you know, I've interviewed Tim a couple of times, and it's like, I hear about the blinds that he sits in and how he stalks and how much time he takes. And he's just like, I've got to sit here all day because I know that bird's coming back. And when that bird's coming back, it's going to be so good. So I feel like you guys absolutely have the natural leg up. Just because I'm a gear nerd too, and to go down it. What mirrorless are we on today?
Yeah, so I've been Canon from the day one, and you know, all the brands are fantastic. I have buddies that shoot on OM systems, and of course, you know, a lot of stuff in Sony. But I do the R5 right now, so full frame mirrorless, and then I often do rent a second body when I go out on like kind of big trips and big assignments. And so I'll usually shoot with the R5 Mark II now, which is really dang slick. I can't quite justify getting a second body at the moment. I'd rather put that money into, you know, new fancy lenses. Like I just got like the 20 millimeter f1.4, which is sick.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. And I was taking astrophotography the other night, just at the base of the collegiate peaks here in Buena Vista, Colorado, you know, these 14,000 foot mountains. But yeah, I've been Canon from start to finish, and love what they do. And again, you know, yes, you can take an iPhone out and get some pretty great shots, but if you want the exceptional stuff, I'm like the other end of the spectrum, where like, oh, gear doesn't matter, you just got to capture the moment. It's like, yeah, that's also true. You got to capture the moment, but having some great gear makes the low light photography, makes the astrophotography, makes the Northern Lights photography really superlative.
Yeah. There's no question. And don't get me started down the rabbit hole, because we could spend 30 minutes talking about gear. I love it. It's just too fun. It's just too fun to nerd out on. You know, selfishly, I'd ask you from a software standpoint. I feel like there's such a gap in the market for, I just took 1,500 shots. Oh my God, the burden of cleaning that card or plugging the camera in and getting them all into the computer, and then looking at them all, whether it's in Lightroom or Bridge or whatever you're doing, and then going through every single solitary one and doing the stars and everything else. Why the hell is there not an AI that does that? That can literally instantaneously process 3,000 images and say, I know composition, I know the rule of thirds, I understand framing, I understand depth of field, I know exposure. Here are your 20 shots out of the 3,000 that are a home run, and just give you that. Why the hell does that software not exist?
You know, I've been sort of marketed to on social media and other things that it looks like that's becoming available. I haven't personally tried it myself, but it is like a photo culling software. And all the examples that I see are, you know, like wedding photographers and family photographers. And I probably should just take the leap and get into it, but I'm a little bit hesitant, only because, you know, when I'm looking at my 7,000 photos from Greenland or whatever, or let's say monarch butterflies, like it is a little bit of a complex thing. And like what I'm looking for is something different this year from the previous 20 years. And so I have this workflow that I've been doing for, you know, I've been locked into it for like a decade plus now. I do Bridge, and I use Adobe Camera Raw. I just made that decision way back in the day. I used to use Aperture, the Apple program, and Lightroom was the replacement for that. I mean, they both existed at the same time, but I was never a huge fan of how the reference files work, because I'm constantly using travel drives, and I'm bringing 4 terabyte travel drive, and I need to transfer all that to multiple computers. I need to ship that off to like creative directors and all that.
Yeah.
And it could have improved since I switched and really dedicated to Adobe Camera Raw. But I love how Bridge and Raw, which essentially is Lightroom, in terms of the editing capabilities, I can just easily copy and paste that whole folder, and I don't have to like worry about the vault. I don't have to worry about all these other things.
Backing
but honestly,
things up, compression. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And like, frankly, the culling to me is actually an important part of it personally, because I have this situation. I have this workflow where I will go through every photo, all 7,000, assign everything 1 star if it turned out. Then I go back through again, 2 stars if I want to edit it, 3 stars if I'm definitely going to edit it, and 4 stars once it is edited. And it's this really, I think it's a really good thing for photographers to review their trip or their shoot images multiple times, because at least in travel photography, wildlife photography, I might be trekking gorillas on day 2, 5, 7, and 10. And I want to see the whole thing multiple times to figure out, do I really want to spend a bunch of time editing a photo from early in the trip when really the later trip photos are way better, or vice versa? So I think going through it multiple times and actually remembering like, oh yeah, I don't need this shot of the gorilla way in the distance that's kind of like shaded and whatnot, because like I know I have almost that same shot later in the trip. So yeah, I actually personally don't really mind going through it, but I also understand the benefit if you could just plug that in. And as we all know, AI is getting so dang good that I'm going to assume even in this relatively nascent stage of AI, it's going to do the job. I probably should try it out.
Yeah, I mean, I was putting some pressure internally. I was like, if this doesn't exist right now, we need to build it. And probably 6 months ago, I looked at all the solutions that are on the market, and I don't think it's binary, right? Like, I understand that process. I had a process when I'm an amateur photographer, minored in college, had a ton of fun with it. Don't want it to be anything more than a hobby. It's fine. It's not binary. You can still do your process, but you know what? I want the AI to rip through everything that I have, surface the best photos for me automatically. I want the AI to go in and impute all the EXF, anything that we have in terms of metadata, and then I want it to enhance it. I don't want to just know that it was the proboscis monkey in Borneo, right? I want to know, is it a male? Is it a female? Is it a juvenile? I want to know what the plants are. I want to know what the trees are. And that technology is already here. Like, why can't you nail all of that, dump stuff, all of that metadata in, and then give me this big graph and make the connections with everything? And I feel like, it's so hard on photographers because there's so much doggone work to do, right? After the fact, like anything that speeds that whole process up and gets us these incredible images quicker, I think is a huge win.
Totally.
Another selfish question. How many times have you had to add extra pages to your passport?
Yeah, I'm probably, like, I'll put it this way. I usually have to get a new passport before the 10-year expiration because I use all the pages. And there was a time when they would give you triple page books, like 3 passports thick. They only do doubles now. So yeah, I will burn through 2 passport sizes, in one passport, probably every, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, something like that. Yeah.
And just from a financial standpoint, so who's paid for / financed all of the trips? And have you, so I'm just curious what it looked like first, really where I'm going, and then like what is it transitioned into in terms of a business model now, right?
Yeah.
And I should say that, like, you probably haven't heard the podcast, but like one of the things that I always say is like, I've never met a revenue source for creatives that I don't like, right? And I really love how many different legs can you get on the stool, and I sort of feel like that's probably been your trajectory. And I think it's so helpful for folks to hear, because sadly, what you explained earlier, and it's the same thing that I lived. What year did you graduate high school?
01.
Okay, so we're relatively close. I'm a couple years older than you. I lived through the whole digital thing too, right? And for all the reasons that we love the digital thing, there's also a downside. When that barrier to entry came down so much, now everybody's got a camera in their pocket, and so much of wildlife photography is the serendipity of right place, right time. It's how many hours in the field, right? So I feel like we have so many customers. It's like, how do I differentiate myself? How am I going to sell my wildlife photography? How is my wildlife photography better than anyone else's? Right. And so I love just being practical about what all those angles are and how you can think about it. And I think there's so many different opportunities to add additional revenue sources. And I feel like that's very much the trajectory that you took. And I love that you have just break that down a little bit and tell us about it.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that I definitely do have multiple legs on the stool. Multiple sources of how this all goes down. I'm very fortunate in that, all of the trips that I do that ultimately yields a lot of my own photographs. I'm working, I'm guiding a trip. So like whether I'm taking photos or not, like that is my primary job, my primary goal. So, all the trips are funded and then I'm getting paid for it. So that's like my salary. And then because I'm guiding photo trips, I'm, taking lots of photos as examples, be like, hey, check out this photo I got of the orangutan over there. You're looking at this one over here, but this one in the distance, yeah, it's a little bit further. It's gonna be smaller in your frame, but here's some cool lighting. So I'm getting those great shots. Even though I'm guiding other folks. And the other thing that I'm really fortunate that I love teaching photography. In fact, that's as much of a passion as taking my own photographs. So, again, very, very lucky that over 20, 25 years or so, I was able to, I've probably guided, I'm just going to guess something like 250, 300 expeditions around the world on all 7 continents. And, that's how I get to do it. There would be no way I'd be able to fund anything close to that. And because, these are relatively high-end trips in the sense, not that we're staying in places with, chandeliers in the bathroom
just
or
the
anything.
travel to get there.
Yeah. And we're staying in like sort of, the company I work for, Natural Habitat Adventures, our definition of luxury is getting you further out there, closer to the wildlife with all the creature comforts. So again, no chandeliers in the bathroom, but instead of staying outside of the Serengeti and driving an hour in every morning to photograph the wildebeest or the lions or whatever it might be,
You're in it.
We're having coffee on our tent doorstep, very nice tent, watching the wildebeest go across. And so it's just, you can get so much more, whether it's just the personal experience, whether it's the photography, by being more immersed in the environment. So yeah, as far as like how it all comes together, yeah, it's the fact that I'm kind of I'm a guide. I guide photo trips and I'm around other people that give me inspiration. My job is to provide that tutelage and inspiration, and it really comes together super, super nicely.
Wow, that's just amazing. How often are you on the road?
Yeah, so I have a bit of a unique position in that I'm full-time in the office as well as a guide. A lot of guides will guide, I think a normal guiding amount, like as a full-time guide, would be like 130, 160 days.
Wow.
I'm probably about 80 days in the field, which translates to 6 to 8 trips roughly in a given year. And the rest of the time I head up all of our sustainability and conservation efforts, kind of cornerstone to this idea of conservation travel. So yeah, 6 to 8 trips a year. There was definitely a time, in the early 2010s, the early teens, that I was, guiding 10, 12, 14 trips just out of need, like the company's need. But now, 8 is kind of like my sweet spot, or let's just say 80 days.
Yeah. Because it's hard. It's hard to be out of the country that often, the
It
time
is,
zones,
yeah.
the food, and you get sick and the whole thing. Like not easy.
Yeah, I mean the flights alone, they're not getting any easier.
No,
Like it takes me 45 hours to get to where we need to be in Borneo, and that's 5 flights. It's across almost every time zone in the world, and yeah, doing that more than a few times a year definitely weighs on you.
for sure.
So yeah, I'm just so fortunate I found that sweet spot. And then as far as photographically, when I'm back home, there's still work to be done, right? So
Yeah.
I'm editing the photos, which I personally love. I know a lot of photographers out there may not be as in love with editing, but I think that's half the equation right there.
Oh,
I've come up
100%.
with a sort of a half-brained analogy recently that I was talking about, where editing is kind of like the final leg of the 4x100 race. Like in the Olympics, you get like
I
4
love that
sprinters.
analogy. I
Like
totally know what you mean. Yeah.
you got to start the race well, you got to run it well, but the final leg, which is the Lightroom, which is the Photoshop, it can get you to win the race. You put your ringer at the end
Always
and they
fastest
make up the
racer.
ground.
Yeah.
And so I love it. I'm editing photos. And then, as you know, I have my own photo podcast, The Wild Photographer, which
Yep.
is super fun. It's
Yep.
doing, for kind of a side hustle passion project, it's doing really well. Like it's got a lot of traction. I'm getting some, some really, really great people on there. I'm doing a lot of solo episodes, and, I think I'm zeroing in on about 60 full episodes of the last few years. I do them twice a month, and it's just a cool free crash course in all things nature, wildlife, landscape, and travel photography.
Amazing.
And of course it's free, but I have a ball doing it.
And there will, of course, be links to all of the above in the show notes. And I think my little machine told me 2019 you started it, right? So you've been at it a while.
Yes. Yeah. So it was kind of serendipitously in a way just before COVID. So, I kind of got the architecture built. And then, of course, COVID happened and the travel industry really just bottomed out. So it allowed me during that time when things were a bit lighter, certainly not traveling and not guiding for the first bit of that, to really, architect the whole program, so to speak, and outline the episodes. And still some of those early episodes are the ones that are ironically doing the best. But yeah, so I've had it for 5 going on 6 years now.
Amazing. Yeah, amazing. And I know that's how we found you originally. And you've got the good where it's not showing me, you've got the great sorry, I pressed the wrong button on the Mac. I just recently moved to a Mac from the dark side of the PC, and I'm still getting my still get my sea legs, so to speak.
Yeah.
You're kicking butt on Instagram too.
Yeah, it's doing great. I love sharing the stories, whether it's just the little 24-hour ones, whether it's the reels and all that. And, it gets a lot of engagement. And like anybody, forming a community is such a cool thing. And the conversations we have and some of the opportunities that arise from, this new version of a portfolio is really, really darn good. And I think I will probably credit Instagram, as well as my photo book on the Monarchs recently, and I got to be featured on 60 Minutes with Anderson Cooper.
Speaking of, I was like, conversations like these, Gordon?
Conversations like exactly. Yeah. So
is he cool, by the way?
Super cool. Great guy. Yeah. It was a really fun time being with the 60 Minutes film crew, uber professional. And I learned a lot from them. I was so fortunate that, I was kind of like the local expert and like, okay, so here's what the Monarchs are going to do in the next 2 hours. Here's where we want to be when that sun comes across this tree line. And, we got them some incredible footage. I was interviewed, as a photographer, scientist, guide, and more than anything, it gave Monarchs a little 12-minute spotlight on Easter Sunday, which is pretty cool. It aired on Easter Sunday, and I think it probably elevated their awareness and their love even a little bit more.
It's such a beautiful thing. And he and I were talking about this offline. Like, I've wanted to go and do this for a long time, go and see this. And it's such a wild story, right? Not to go too far down the nature rabbit hole, but like sometimes they fly from as far as like Canada. Like you would never think that they lived that long. Okay. Yep. And 2, that they could even make a flight that long.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. I mean, that's like the wildest part of the story, and they are one of the most researched insects, certainly the most researched butterfly out there. But for every question we answer, we form 2 more. So it's like this never-ending story of understanding their biology, their navigation. The fact that the migratory generation, which lives from like August until March, lives 4 times as long as the monarchs we see in North America in the summertime. These monarchs that are in Mexico, they live 8 months. The rest of them live 2 months, all from wild genetic programming and getting cues from the sun and magnetism. It's just one of the most fascinating stories. And so being able to be down there and seeing it, like I was mentioning earlier, is I will routinely have people on my photo trips that we were just trekking gorillas, we were photographing lemurs in these just crazy exotic places. But and even Anderson said that he's like he's a super well-traveled guy. Yeah. He's like, this is one of the coolest things, maybe the single coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And that's what really my guests will say that routinely. So it's nice to have that incredible confidence to say, go see it ASAP. It's just phenomenal.
Make a note when we go offline. I got to teach you how to start a broadcast list.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Mandatory, not optional. So, okay. So started with the guiding, and that sounds so fun too. And just as a quick aside, because my mind always goes to the marketing, the business, are the majority of the people that go on the trips that you're guiding also photographers, or are they mixed bag of nature lovers and photographers?
It's a mixed bag. So we have basically 2 different types of trips at Natural Habitat. The majority are kind of quote unquote non-photo, you can get great photos in any trip we do. But then we have a smaller subsection of photography expeditions that are photographers, and they're tried and true. Some might be shooting on point and shoots, but want to elevate. Some, have big fancy DSLRs or mirrorless. So when I do guide photo trips, and I tend to guide more photo trips just because it's a little bit of a limiting factor to get, pro photographers on these trips that are also biologists and experts in, whatever monarchs or lemurs or anything like that. So yeah, I do tend to guide more photography trips than quote unquote non-photo, but I mean, gosh, the places we're at and the situations we put ourselves in to be so close to nature, every single trip is a photo trip when I'm on it.
Yeah. And I love that. And, it's the reason I asked selfishly. I've been on some guided trips, just went on one. Mine tend to be of the motorcycle variety, but you always end up forming a great bond with your guide, right?
Yeah.
And it's like over the years, my hope is that you've kept up with these folks and that you have relationships with them still, and they know you are working and selling, the photographer selling prints, right? Because they will just keep coming back to you and back to you and back to you and back to you and back to you to buy.
Exactly.
So I'm like, foster that relationship, get those emails, keep them going,
Oh yeah, no, I definitely do that. And then, just as a quick kind of related aside is, I can't emphasize this enough, is that, the guiding that I do, it's a people business. I will advise a lot of young folks that they love the wildlife, they love nature, but the reality is when you're guiding photo trips, yes, it's awesome to be in these places, but one of my most enjoyable parts is being with like-minded people. So yeah, the relationships are a huge part of it. And, when I was on 60 Minutes, obviously kind of a big deal. Like I heard from people that I haven't guided for 10, 20 years saying like, oh my gosh, I was just watching this show and there you were. It was really heartwarming.
That's so good. Okay. So you've been transitioning the business a little bit more to add the additional leg in the stool, which is the print sales, right? Which is the limited edition sales, the metal sales. How has that gone so far? Do you feel like it's growing? What are the challenges you're facing there? What are the opportunities? Just be curious to hear about that business in a silo, because that's definitely what our audience wants to hear.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I got to say, I've always had some vehicle to sell prints, whether it was, a site that I designed, whether it was, another site. But as soon as I moved to art storefronts, like honestly, the automation, whether it's the promo, whether it's just, I mean, it's really navigable on the website, and like you can add the frame, you can do the metal prints. There's really cool merchandise stuff.
Who'd you pick as your fulfillment, by the way?
So Bay Photo for the prints, and then I think is it called Groot or something like that for some of the merchandise. I know, right? I might be not saying that right. But yes, it's definitely like a several times multiplied response so far, which is great. And now that I'm pairing, my audience, not just from the hundreds of people that I've guided over the years, but the thousands of people that are listening to my podcast and that are on, my social media. It's such a easy, obvious way to get the things that they love in front of them via the Art Storefronts website. And it's going super well.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing too, like when I say add legs to the stool, I mean revenue legs, not burdens. You've got enough on your plate. CSS, HTML, JavaScript, designing websites, fulfilling orders is a waste of your damn time, right? And that's like the one thing that I say, because the hardest thing to do as an artist is to market yourself, right? To get eyeballs on the work. And it's like you've got that in spades. As you look, out of curiosity, as you look at this next season of your life, have you thought far enough in the future to say like, okay, am I going to be guiding 8 trips a year into my 50s, into my 60s, into my 70s? Like, is that part of the roadmap? Or are you like, okay, let's get this photography business humming and start delivering revenue now, such that, when I do want to start slowing down, and I should say, because it's just so fascinating. It's so fascinating. The guy that owns Whoop, okay, Whoop is the
ring.
So I have the ring. I've had the ring forever, and I love it. Whoop is even bigger than the ring. Okay, and you're gonna hate me for telling you this, but I'm going to tell you this. Okay, so the data is so damn conclusive on sleep, right? Sleep being the most important thing. There's nothing more important. Health, longevity, staying healthy, not getting sick, not getting any of these diseases. He has all of the data, and he's got like worldwide data. And there were super fascinating things. And this is like a tight-lipped guy. And so he was talking about it. And it's like the questions to him were like, which countries have the most sex, right? And it's like the wristband knows based on the heart rate. And the answer to that one was like, what was it? It was Australia and the United States tie. Which country drinks the most? Ireland. And which country has the latest average bedtime, which was 1:30, which I thought was crazy, which I think was either Qatar or UAE, because
Wow.
they don't drink and it's too hot during the day. But
Yeah.
where I was going with all that, you want to know what the number one most destructive thing is to sleep?
Is it travel?
Is it eating too close before bed? Is it excessive alcohol consumption? Is it too much time staring at blue light screens, right? And the number one killer, business travel.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, because routine is the most important thing to sleep, right?
Yeah.
So you look at that, and it's like, I took my family to Costa Rica this last week. It was my vacation, and that travel back on, and I'm 46, that travel back on Sunday, which was like a long drive, one flight, a layover, another flight, and then finally home. I'm just like, oh my God, it's Tuesday and I'm still not right.
Oh, I totally believe it.
And I know yours is way worse than that.
Now, the good thing though is that, I've been doing this for 20 plus years and I have a system. And so, frankly, I will always try to find one flight in my journey to be that super long 16, 17-hour flight. And I kid you not, like I set my watch to the time zone I'm going to be in. I go to bed at 9 p.m. I get 8 hours of sleep on the plane, and I wake up, and it really, it's exhausting because of the airport transfers and the security lines and the customs. But like, I actually, in a weird sort of masochistic way, I get rejuvenated by the flight. Like, I love just
that is
nestling
so
into
weird to hear.
I know, right? But like, it's probably the way I'm able to do this so long is like, I actually get pretty rejuvenated by the flight itself. Like, I drink a lot of water. I have my element salts. I eat well. I don't drink a lot on the plane, just enough to kind of get to sleep and all that. And I just kind of treat it as this weird sort of walking meditation that, I usually arrive fairly refreshed. Frankly, as I'm getting older, the jet lag is definitely, I feel it more, like, when I'm in the middle of the night, basically, when I'm actually in the day in Borneo, it's almost like a 12-hour switch. But yeah, I think probably part of my success is having that system, having done it for so long, and in consistency in a little bit of a different way. Like, I'm very consistent with how I travel. I got my little lumbar pillow. I got my eye mask. I got my noise canceling headphones.
You're completely dialed in now.
I'm dialed in.
Have you not done a podcast episode on that? Have you?
No, but that's a great idea.
I guarantee you that will be in your top 10 downloads.
Ooh, I'm gonna write that down. 100%. I will, because I've got a system that I'm very proud of.
You got hacks on hacks on hacks. People will go nuts for that because it is so hard. It's challenging. But sorry to go on the tangent, but to go back on it. So, do you see, in terms of the arc, keeping up that 8 trips well into your 50s, well into your 60s? Is that sort of what you think?
I'd like to say so. I think that my ideal would be to, again, that balance between the guiding and then the photography. Obviously, right now I'm smushing them all together, and that's fantastic. But several of the trips I've been doing the last 2 years are purely photographic trips. Like, I'm going to gather marketing assets. I'm going to be on camera. Like, I travel with a videographer these days, and we do conservation films, and I do photo tutorials. And that not only is a little bit more relaxing in the sense of not having to do quite as much prep work and not having to have 18-hour days because I am the guide, but it's also really, it fills me up, because like it's kind of, there's a saying, only do what only you can do. It's a little bit confusing, but like, it basically means do what you do best and cut out the rest. So getting to your point, like, I don't want to be programming websites. I don't want to be, upsampling, downsampling photos for this thumbnail on a website. So being able to automate it with art storefronts is like, it's the biggest weight off my shoulders. And knowing all my photography that I've been doing the last 20 plus years is working while I sleep. Like, it's working perfectly. It's working great. And yeah, so I do think that I will probably be guiding as long as I possibly can, because it's really what got me into this in the first place. I get really, I get filled up from guiding too. I mean, just being with people and kind of having that leadership role, I think is very fulfilling. But I do think if I were to make a magic genie wish, like being a Tim Lehman of the world, like being that notable photographer that, gets, the great photos every single time, and they get elevated to stratospheric levels. That's something that, I think in some ways I have achieved, but there's definitely another level or two that I'm chasing after.
For sure. And it's one of the great things when you're there, and it's one of the super frustrating things, because it doesn't matter if we're talking about art on the created by hand side, take your pick, painting, sculpting, charcoal, whatever, or on the photography side, both of them follow the power law. It's like the 0.2%, the 0.3% that make 90% of the money,
Totally.
and they just do so well. And to your point, like you want that phone to ring is really what it comes down to, right? We need you on another one. We need you on another one. But one thing that I'm like extremely encouraged by, and I should say massive AI nerd, too far down the AI rabbit hole. And I created something for you too that I'll give you after this that you're gonna like. But
nice.
I believe that we're in a transitionary period here where photographers like you that have these huge archives, you actually have a significant asset there. And early on, and it's interesting, right? Because you want to talk about just like peak to trough. Early on, film, expensive, development, travel was harder, the internet wasn't around. You could have stock photos and have that be a good, robust part of your business, literally pay your bills and then some. Digital comes in, that business is dead, right? Well, now there's this massive amount of photography that is sitting on guys like you's hard drives, right? Backed up here, there, and everywhere, that's not exposed to the internet, that hasn't seen the light of day, and I feel like it's only going to become more valuable in time, especially as these AIs can train on these huge image sets. And so I feel like the number one thing to do for you guys that are photographers are start getting the housekeeping done now. And it's again why I want AI, and it doesn't have to be exposed to like the big dogs, I mean locally, but everything labeled, dead to rights, accurate folders, accurate geolocation, accurate subject matter material, all of that stuff, and having that ready to go, right? And I might be wrong about that. It might be the AI gets so advanced that like 3 years from now, you press one button, it scans your entire archive, and it's like, boom, here it is, Scott. Here's all like, and then even just having that search engine on your own archive that is like so dead to rights. Like, could you imagine putting in a species, whether you put the Latin name, the colloquial name, male, female, 2 shots, 3 shots, whatever the keywords are, and have all of it just surfaced immediately. All of that's come in, and I feel like a lot of these photographic archives are going to have an outsized value proposition for all of these various different projects and tangents and training and everything else. So a large part of me is like, do not expose everything to the internet under any circumstances, which by default happens anyway because of the size of these archives, right? Especially in the digital era. But I do feel like a moment in time is coming where those archives are going to become more and more valuable. And I think that's like a very encouraging thing, especially for photographers, artists too.
Oh, I love hearing that. I mean, that's fantastic. And there's like that saying of, when was the best time to get into photography, or when was the best time to get into podcasting or YouTube? 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Exactly. The second best time is today. But I do feel very fortunate that I've been pretty diligent of saving those photos and backing them up. And I have my redundant drives, and I have some on the cloud, et cetera. And yeah, I love to hear that, because I genuinely want to be useful with my photography. Like, yeah, it's really cool to be able to support myself, and that's obviously super important. Got to eat, got to have a roof over your head. But if those things, if I captured some unique behavior that was never captured, or a collection of a certain species or a certain area, maybe honestly, like, kind of in a bummer sort of way, but maybe it's an area that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it has been deforested. Having AI be able to identify that, and also link to the right people, the right sources, the right media outlets that might enjoy that and help elevate those stories to another level would be absolutely huge.
Yeah, tremendous. Now, Q4 is coming. Have you heard us banging the drum about this? How important it is? Yeah. And you already know. What are you doing strategically as the season approaches? What are you going to do a little bit differently? I imagine now that you're with us, you have probably more products than you ever had before, just by virtue of the merch coming in and everything else. How are you approaching it? What is your game plan? How serious are you taking it? Be curious to hear that.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing. And I feel that even though I have been selling my art for quite some time, and I also dabbled in stock, 10 years ago, and felt that rise and fall, like you mentioned, one thing, kind of even parlaying a little bit with the AI, is that I've been taking my personal blog pretty seriously in the last year or so, which has helped me get a really great mailing list together of friends, of community. And that's probably my number one way of getting Q4 art sales out there, is direct contact. Social media is fantastic, and I know through your art promo calendar, like that's cranking, that's getting it out there. It's one more thing I don't have to think about.
Yeah.
But where, you know, the basket that I'm going to put my eggs in, that I'm going to like do some direct, legit kind of focusing, is definitely almost like a direct contact kind of sales.
Yeah.
There's a number of photographers that I follow that will do specific emails on just their one newest print, from the latest expedition. And I got to say, not just because my skills have increased over the years, but the camera tech over the years is like, I think what I'm going to start doing is getting more into like a featured photo, like one or two in those direct contacts, meaning like direct emails, and really trying to feature those things as like, hey, this is the latest, this is the greatest, this is the highest resolution, this is the coolest, photograph with the dynamic range and all the really special stuff. So yeah, I would say probably answering it by direct contact, using my blog where I do photo tutorials as a bit of like a not it's something beyond just the salesy pitch. It's like, hey, here's how to take great astrophotography. Here's my tips and tricks. Oh, and by the way, here's my latest photo from the new moon in Colorado, 2025, beautiful Milky Way over Mount Princeton. And then, frankly, I hope people will pick that up.
Yeah, amazing. Have you, side tangent a little bit, have you done photo books? Yeah.
So I've done one that was legit published, and it's done quite well. It's on the Monarch Migration, and they can be found, on Amazon and all those things. But as far as like my own, no, I probably shouldn't I?
Yeah, you need to.
Yeah,
you need to. It's they're so powerful for so many different reasons, and like, one of the things that I'm constantly teaching from the art side of things, and it's an emotional business, art, right? People get real hung up on a lot of things, and they think somehow that the fundamental rules of business don't apply, and the fundamental rules of business do apply. And you've got this covered now on Art Storefronts, but I'll say it again. You got to have a range of pricing. Okay. And you have to have non-wall art as a part of the lineup, because not everybody is ready to buy wall art. And there's so many reasons for it, right? The primary reason, which is the most important, the easiest customer to get, is the one that you already have. And it's independent of how much money they spend.
Yeah, echo that.
$1, if they spend $100,000, they spend $10. You have an email address, they purchase, mathematically, it says they are more likely to come back and purchase a second time than it is for you to go and get a customer for the first time, right? Two, in this constantly switched on, thumb scrolling digital world that we live in, you have to have things that qualify as impulse purchases.
Yes.
You just have to. And that means sub $100 non-wall art. And so you have that now. In addition to that, you now have more opportunities to bundle than you ever have before, right? So buy a print. Not only can you get a coffee mug or a calendar or a yoga mat or a tote bag, I'll also put that image on your cell phone cover, right?
Yes.
And it's like this plus this. Like in marketing, we call it the bonus sandwich, right? So the meat is your giant metal, aluminum, huge hand signed print, right, for $1,500 or $2,000, and then you also get, the one thing of merch, or even like a smaller print or a book. But the books are so powerful. And I've already looked at your archive. I mean, you could do countries, you could do animals, you could do, there's so many different tangents of different books that you can do. And it really, like, don't get me wrong, Amazon is great, and Amazon is where all the books and Madagascar trees are there's just nothing like it. Self-publishing now and self-distribution, especially if you have your own audience, is just such a big deal.
And there are a lot of print-on-demand options these days, right? So you don't have to like put a ton of money up front and like have all this inventory.
It's print on demand. Yeah, that's the other thing. And they sell year after year after year. And the thing about it is, like, one drives the other and the other drives the other. What do I mean? When you have the coffee table book in the living room, it's like it manifests the print wanting to be on the wall. And when you have the print on the wall, they're like, I've got to get the coffee table book, that's on the thing. And I imagine being a longtime blogger, being a podcaster, like relationally, you have it so good, right? Like everybody wants to say like, oh, you like that? I actually know him. It's my buddy Court. I went on this and this trip, right? Like I listened to his podcast. I sent him a text message, right? Like it's a human being flex that's as old as time. Like they just like to do it. So you've got that in spades, which is tremendous. I want to pivot to AI.
Sure.
One, I'm curious, thoughts, feelings on it. Two, usage so far, because my goodness, I feel like you could have 5,000 usages, especially on how damn good it is with animals and plants and nailing those species and understanding the biology. But curious where you are on that whole journey.
Yeah, so very bullish on AI. I love it. I realized I just rewatched Terminator the other day, and I get the scare, the concern, but the reality is it's here. It's like the internet. Like, are you gonna not use the internet? And it's an incredible tool. I'm using it, I would say, a good bit. I'm sure there are people that are using it a heck of a lot more, but I use it for coming up with outlines for podcasts, all the way to use like summarizing the like this is actually a great way, is I'll take the transcript of my podcast, which itself is probably using AI to generate from my speech. And then I'll have AI summarize it for me, or write some show notes, or be like, hey, what do you think based on your opinion, AI? What are the 3 most important things that I said? Because I think that helps like be a bit of a soundboard
for sure,
and kind of check me on like what I think is important may not be what a billion websites that it's referencing also think are important. So it helps me kind of like maybe assimilate to the masses is not the right word, but like tune in to what everybody wants, like the democratized internet. And so I think it's really, really good for pulling out things that I might not have been aware of. And again, writing little things. I think, what arthelper.ai is doing with keywording. I mean, that's huge. Keywording is such a pain. And, I think it'd be great, like you were saying earlier, at one point, if you could just upload your batch of images, your whole million photo portfolio, and have all the metadata automatically put in. But in the meantime, being able to upload the photos from a recent trip, or my top 12 from a certain trip, and have those keyworded and titled. And I think it's just, again, a great sounding board. I won't always take exactly what AI says or suggests, but it usually suggests something that I wouldn't have thought of. And especially in this world of social media, where there are tried and true ways to acquire attention, to be punchy, to have that hook, have that tagline. AI in general is just giving me that ability with a click of a button and a few of my own original ideas to turn it into something much bigger, bolder, and a heck of a lot faster.
1,000%. And everything that you just said there is like my biggest, there's 2 things that I want to unpack from what you said, what I think are so important. The first one is just like, it's just this giant brain that we now have access to, that can be a sounding board, that can help us out with this, can help us out with that. And people get like so wrapped around the axle of like the Terminator side of it, or, oh God, I don't want it to sound like me. You could potentially talk to the smartest person in any discipline for free as much as you want. Why are you not taking advantage of that? Right?
Exactly.
I've interviewed 100,000 freaking artists. Okay. Like starting during COVID, I was running webinars 3 days a week. I only do it 1 day a week now, but I swear I've talked to 100,000 artists. Do you know how many out of the 100,000 artists have anything even approaching 1 full-time employee?
How many?
It's less than 1%. It's
wow,
less than 1/10
really?
of 1%. And I'm sitting here going, oh my God, AI is the first employee.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Extend your superpowers. What are you doing? Right? That's number 1. Number 2, the thing that you said that resonated with me so much, and you said it twice. You just said it here with AI, but also like you said it earlier, and it resonated with me so much. I was like, in my inner monologue, it's like, some of your earliest podcast episodes are still the most popular. It was never the ones that you thought it would be. You're like, oh my God, this is a banger, dude. This is going to be so good. Crickets. And then that one, for whatever reason, just worked so well, right?
That is so true. I cannot underline that enough.
It 100% happens with art too. Right. And it's the thing that kills me with artists and photographers. They're like, I'm not going to get started until I have a niche, or until I know what my best stuff is. You don't know what your best stuff is. You don't have any damn idea. It's shots on goal. It's how many arrows you're firing at the target, because you never know what's going to work. Right.
That's exactly it.
You create that podcast episode. I do the same thing. It's like, I need a sounding board to tell me, hey, what might be the high points of this thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know everything. My own cognitive bias doesn't enter into it. Like, the wisdom of the crowd is always going to be more than me. And for you guys on the artist side, it's why you just put the stuff out there. Don't be emotional about it and see what sticks. And it's the same for us. It's the same for us. It's crazy.
Fully agree.
So I developed this like proprietary thing. Okay. When I say I've got problems. Okay. My wife is like, if you don't start spending more time with your children, I'm going to divorce you. And I say that in jest, but it's like, I've been more jacked into AI since I was like, the last time was like when I had a computer game addiction when I was like 12, right? And my like dad finally was like, that's it. You know, I'm going to take this thing away because it's just so entertaining and enjoyable. So I created this thing called Voice Print. And what it does is that it goes and scans everything that you have available online, essentially. And it comes back with what does Court Whelan sound like when he writes?
Ooh.
Yeah. And so
that's huge.
If you're still using Art Helper, I'll have my team put it in Art Helper for you. And otherwise, though, you drag this file into GPT, you drag it into Grok, you drag it into Claude, whoever you're using, Gemini, and I will blow your mind today. Because
I'm totally
in your voice, and it is so damn accurate. It's insane. And that's just like one of the many ways that like we can continue to level up with this, which I just think is absolutely insane. I mean, I have so many ideas for you too, especially on like what notes do you have on all of these species that you're photographing? Like, do you have all the travel itineraries still and all the days and anything notes that you have? Like, do you know how valuable that corpus of data is going to be for you? But anyway, going way too far down the line. Which one? I love it. Which one do you use is your day to day? Just out of curiosity.
GPT. Yeah, I have like the pro version, and it's fantastic. Oh, and I use it far beyond photography as well. I do a lot with my day-to-day job where, I'll have a 35-page scientific paper on, ironically, like energy use in AI. And I'm trying to think like, okay, cool. So I want to carbon offset our company's use of AI because we're 100% carbon neutral travel company. And so I'll take, 5 peer-reviewed papers that all came out in the last 2 months. And rather than read through them line by line, which is, a lot of it, if those folks out there have read scientific papers, a lot of it's just like background and intro. So this cuts so much time. AI, there's so many possibilities, especially with uploading documents, like you just said too. So I use it all the time. But GPT, it's probably very similar to how I stuck with Canon. It's just like, it's what I started with. I'm most familiar with it. And nothing against the other ones, but super familiar and love it.
You're in a great place because the minute you open it up, you're going to go into my world. We have all 4 of them up at once, and the 4 wise men goes on. What do you think? What do you think? This is what they said. What do you think? I go so far down the way. I want to be sensitive to your time. If you could go back in time to college court, okay, knowing everything that you know now, what would be your advice for that young buck?
Oh man, it's a tough one because on one hand, I'd say, keep on doing what you're doing. Like you got to a great place. So there would be just kind of the same thing of, get stuff done. I actually just saw a great little clip of former President Obama being interviewed, just being like, the number one advice he has for young folks is prove that you can get stuff done. And that's something I've always held tried and true. And I just say, make sure you keep on doing it all. Now, here's where I would probably differ is I might say, not based on what, President Obama was saying, but like one thing that I think could be valuable is playing more of the long game. And, especially with photographers, we have to take whatever opportunities come across our way because it's a competitive field.
Yes.
You never know what direction. You got to kind of cast the net far and wide. But we also know in business and life and goal setting, all that, like if you have a really, really specific place you want to be, you will be able to figure out the route to get there better. And if you can be like very, very niche and narrow, it allows you to become more of an expert, more of a name, more of a brand in that area. So I would probably say back when I was in college, if I could have outlined exactly where I wanted to be a little bit better, it could have me in a better place today. Zero complaints. But I think that's it's always been one of my big struggles is figuring out exactly where I want to go. Like, what do you really want?
So true.
And I was interviewing on my podcast Chris Burkhart, who's, you know, a phenomenal photographer, adventure sports, you know, all that sort of stuff, but also a lot of nature and landscapes. And he had this great quote, because he teaches a lot of photo courses and classes and like kind of business classes around photography. And he says, if you don't know where you want to go, I can't tell you how to get there. And that's his whole way of saying, like, spend a lot of time in figuring out, what do you really want? Where do you really want to go? I took a very kind of meandering, circuitous route. I think it got me to a great place, but that's one thing that it would be interesting to see how the future would unfold if I was really, really specific about, you know, being, you know, the next kind of Peter Lick, or the next, you know, big name photographer, the next person that has, you know, a show on Discovery Channel about photography, et cetera, et cetera. Like, maybe that's in my future still. I still think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. Stunning interview. Everybody was asking where you can find him. He's got the easiest probably on his Instagram, and it's court, and it's like tennis court _Whelan, and it's WE. I mean, all this is going to be in the show notes, but just people are asking right now on Instagram. WHELAN. So COURT _WHELAN on Instagram, and you hit the link in the bio there, and he's got all the good stuff in his link tree, and you can watch him on 60 Minutes too, which is super, super exciting. Thank you so much for the time. Fantastic interview. Stay on. I will share these goodies with you, and then we got to talk Instagram broadcast channel. So you guys, thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. All the things are going to be in the show notes after the fact. So if you're listening to this on Spotify or YouTube or Apple Podcasts, all of those links will be in there. And Court, thanks again for the time.
Thank you, Patrick. It's been a pleasure.